Frank, an avid fisherman with a knack for uncovering treasures from the depths, reeled in an odd, ancient-looking object while out at sea. Intrigued by its mysterious appearance, he decided to have it examined by an expert to unravel its secrets. What he didn't anticipate was the expert's immediate, alarming response. The expert's face contorted into a mix of concern and fear as he uttered those words, leaving Frank bewildered and anxious to understand the grave implications tied to his seemingly innocent find. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The moment that Frank tried to pull his fishing net out of the water, he knew that he had caught something very different than aquatic life. This was much heavier than any sea creature he had ever encountered, and when he finally managed to get the net to the surface and saw a giant metal object appear, his first instinct was to dive for cover. A sea mine? He thought that he had just fished up an old sea mine. They were used in the Second World War to blast submarines out of the water. As an experienced fisherman, Frank knew that there were still a couple of those around. He just never expected to reel one in himself, but when a detonation stayed out, Frank dared to look up again. What was he going to do? He carefully approached the edge of his boat so that he could have a closer look at the object, and under further inspection, it did not really look like a min, at least not the one that he had ever seen before. But he also had no idea what else he could be dealing with. Thus, Frank was left with a bit of a dilemma. He knew that the best course of action was to open his net and let this big, round metal object sink back to the bottom of the sea where it belonged. But Frank could not help but be curious about his new find, and letting it go now would probably mean that he would never see it again and never find out what it actually was. Maybe it could be valuable. After a bit of consideration, Frank decided to carefully get the metal object out of the water, which was easier said than done. When it was fully lifted above the water, the boat started to lean in its direction, and Frank could hear his crane start to crack and protest. He needed to get this on the boat quickly to make sure it did not destroy his equipment. After a bit of panic, Frank succeeded in his quest. The metal ball was on his boat, and nothing had broken down. Yet, there was still a small chance that he was dealing with a bomb, and even though it was stable now, if he were to hit rough seas anytime soon, then who knows what could possibly go wrong. Frank wanted to get to land as quickly as possible, but he was nowhere close to home at that time. He had set out on a 3-week fishing trip and was a week of sailing away from his safe, familiar shores. But luckily, there was land nearby. It was a place that Frank had only seen on the map but had never been before. He did not like going to a new country on his own, but he felt like he did not really have a choice in this situation. He needed to get his metal find to land and fast. Maybe there was somebody there who knew what he was dealing with. He found this a lot closer to those locals' homes than to his own, and so Frank started to head for nearby land. After a couple hours of carefully sailing the calm waters, Frank finally arrived at a small harbor. People were immediately giving him strange looks as they did not see boats like this here often. They wanted to know what Frank came here to do. But then they saw what he was carrying on his boat, and they started to frantically discuss in their native tongue. Frank had no idea what they were saying, but he was deadly curious. He kept asking them what they were talking about, but they basically ignored him, at least until he tried to get off his boat. They were very quick to forbid that. They were not about to let him leave. They first wanted to bring somebody here to look at the metal ball. Frank asked again why they wanted this and what they thought this metal ball was. But the only answer he got was that he would find out in due time. For now, he would have to wait. But luckily, the locals did want him to work comfortably, and so they brought him some fresh food and water. The expert would arrive the next day, he was told. Now all Frank could do for the time being was wait. And he had to wait alongside the mysterious object he had fished out of the sea. Of course, he was going to spend this time trying to inspect it and learn more about it. But this metal ball was not about to give up its secrets that easily. Frank was left absolutely clueless by the object. There were 3 small holes in the object, surrounded by big metal nail heads. He could not use the holes to see inside. Even when he used his flashlight, he could only see that they were not too deep, but they were also not perfectly cylinder. All the holes had different patterns inside, but Frank had no idea what those could be for. But there was one thing he found that made Frank really excited, and that was that there was a thin line running all around the metal ball. Frank was convinced that this was where the object could be opened, exposing its secrets inside. He speculated that the holes were the key to opening it, and those suspicions would soon be confirmed. The coastal breeze carried whispers of anticipation as the islanders gathered at the dock to welcome Dr. Rosalinda, a respected anthropologist renowned for deciphering ancient mysteries. The villagers, led by their chief, introduced her to Frank, the fisherman behind the remarkable discovery. As Dr. Rosalinda approached the sphere, her curiosity was evident. She studied its details carefully, noting the fine seams and intricate design. Her trained eye recognized that the seams weren't decorative, they served a purpose. Driven by curiosity, Dr. Rosalinda felt compelled to explore further. She soon shared an old island legend tied to the object, known as the Sphere of Truth. It was believed to preserve the wisdom of ancient ancestors. This revelation stirred wonder among the villagers, adding a sacred layer to the object's significance. She explained how the artifact embodied the island's culture and endurance. It wasn't just an object, it symbolized unity, connecting generations through belief and tradition. Frank and the villagers began to realize the magnitude of their find. As the sun began to set, Frank faced a moral dilemma. Should they attempt to open the sphere, possibly disrupting something sacred? Dr. Rosalinda guided him through the ethical considerations, emphasizing the importance of preserving the island's heritage while pursuing truth. Eventually, a breakthrough came. The sphere could be opened, but only with specific pins designed to align with the holes. Knowing the pins were stored in the Island Museum, they devised a discreet plan to retrieve them. They agreed to return everything afterward, ensuring their actions would not damage the community's trust or heritage. As Frank and Dr. Rosalinda overcame the museum's obstacles, they faced their sternest challenge, yet the skeptical museum curator. He questioned their motives, demanding clarity. Frank and Dr. Rosalinda, undeterred, passionately explained their intentions, emphasizing their reverence for the island's history and the artifact's safekeeping. Their sincerity evident, the pair delved into the island's history. They spoke with heartfelt conviction, sharing their fascination and deep respect for the past. The curator, initially guarded, began to view them not as intruders but as protectors of a shared legacy. After a tense exchange, he reluctantly agreed to help. Frank and Dr. Rosalinda gave their word. The pins would be returned after unlocking the sphere's secrets. With the pins secured, Frank and Dr. Rosalinda made their way back to the dock. The night air was filled with quiet anticipation. Under the silent sky, they prepared for the moment of truth. The atmosphere was thick with expectation. Guided by Rosalinda's expertise, Frank carefully aligned the pins with the intricate patterns inside the holes. Each step was deliberate, the sphere responding with faint clicks and vibrations. The metal shell began to shift, revealing the secrets concealed within. The opening revealed a trove of ancient artifacts. Frank and Dr. Rosalinda stared in awe. Inside the sphere lay tools, documents, and ornaments, remnants of a lost civilization. Every piece offered a glimpse into lives long past, their craftsmanship, a tribute to the island's forgotten history. The discovery confirmed the legends. The sphere truly was a vessel of truth. Dr. Rosalinda noticed his struggle. She spoke with calm conviction, urging him to honor their promise. After deep reflection, Frank made his decision. The artifacts would be returned. He stood firm in his choice, committing fully to preservation over profit. With renewed purpose, he and Dr. Rosalinda carefully packed the relics and set off toward the museum. With reverence, they returned the artifacts to the staff, ensuring they would be displayed and protected for future generations. The circle had been completed. The treasures were home, ready to tell their stories to all who wished to listen. The sphere, having played a pivotal role in this adventure, became a symbol of the island's resilience and determination to protect their history and traditions. Its legacy extended beyond the artifacts it held. It became a beacon, inspiring the islanders to honor their past and ensure its preservation for future generations. As their time on the island came to an end, Frank and Dr. Rosalinda departed with a profound sense of accomplishment. They carried with them the gratitude of the islanders and the memory of a journey that had changed their perspectives forever. The island had etched itself into their hearts, guiding their future efforts to protect cultural heritage. Before they left, the community honored Frank with a finder's fee, an expression of appreciation for his pivotal role in preserving their history. Moved by the gesture, Frank understood that true reward came not in wealth, but in the positive impact his actions had created. Eventually, It was time to say goodbye. Frank left the island with a heavy heart but a clear sense of purpose. The experience had given him far more than an adventure. It had given him a mission. The islanders bid him farewell with heartfelt thanks, seeing him not as an outsider but as a guardian of their legacy. As a symbol of their bond, the islanders gifted Frank a special artifact, a reminder of their gratitude and the journey they had shared. He accepted it with reverence, knowing it would forever connect him to the people and the place that had transformed his life. Looking toward the horizon, Frank felt inspired. The island had awakened in him a deeper passion for exploration, not for fame or fortune, but for discovery that uplifted and preserved. In quiet reflection, Frank realized the profound nature of his experience on the island. The true treasures of life, he understood, lay not in material wealth but in preserving culture, forging lasting friendships, and doing what was morally right. The island had gifted him a perspective that transcended gold or jewels, and he vowed to carry this wisdom forward in all his future expeditions. It was a lesson that would forever guide him, a treasure beyond measure.